what Democrats opposed was unleashing sexual predators on girls throughout the United States of America.
Yeah, that was Hakeem Jeffries responding to Gavin Newsom going onto a podcast with Charlie Kirk. There's so many good clips out of that, but we really want to focus on the one where they're talking about girls playing in, or boys playing in girls sports. So we'll get into that a little bit later. We're also covering tariffs, and we're going to talk about who is the future of the Democratic Party. Of course, we've got to cover more cringe videos from the left and the censuring of Al Greene and more. Thank you for joining me on another edition of Spark the Conversation. This is your host, Mark the Spark, bringing you today's news. Don't forget to like, subscribe, leave a comment, share with a friend. Let's get into it. Okay, so Gavin Newsom went on a podcast with Charlie Kirk. And like I said, there are a lot of good clips. Go on X and go to Charlie Kirk's X page. You'll see all the clips broken down from this conversation they had. He covered a lot of topics. One of the funny stories, actually, there's a good clip out there when Gavin Newsom was trying to tell him a story about his son wanting to skip a day of school. And Gavin Newsom's like, no, you're going to school. And Charlie Kirk called him out on it. It was pretty funny. He says, what's the big deal? You kept kids out of school for like 2 years. What difference would one day make? It was classic. Drop the mic. Anyways, this clip is asking him about boys who are playing in girls' sports, and he actually gets Gavin Newsom to admit that it's unfair. We'll talk about this a little bit after.
So like you right now should come out and be like, you know what? The young man who's about to win the state championship in the long jump in female sports,
right.
that shouldn't happen. You as the governor should step out and say no.
No, and I appreciate.
But like, would you do something like that? Would you say no men in female sports?
Well, I think it's an issue of fairness. I completely agree with you on that. So that's easy to call out, the unfairness of that. There's also a humility and grace, that these poor people are more likely to commit suicide, have anxiety and depression. And the way that people talk down to vulnerable communities is an issue that I have a hard time with as well. So both things I can hold in my hand. How can we address this issue with the kind of decency that I think, is inherent in you, but not always expressed?
So I think what he's trying to say is that he just wants to show mercy to these people. And he's kind of accusatory in saying that we treat certain people that we disagree with a certain kind of disrespect, and we don't have pity on these people, and we don't treat them kindly and with humanity. But the reality is that that's not really the truth. We actually treat people with respect as long as they treat us with respect. In fact, you can go almost to any conservative podcast and listen when they talk about the transgender issue, and they will say, I will even use the person's pronouns, preferred pronouns, if we can call it that, as long as the person treats me with respect. But typically our viewpoint is, you know what, we'll just call them by their name. Whatever name they tell us to call them by, we'll call them by their name. But if you want to talk about facts and science, then we're going to use scientific terms. We're going to call them by their actual gender, their actual sex, which are the same thing, right? And we are going to still treat them with respect, though. Even if we tell them the truth, what our beliefs are, and we call them by their true sex, and their name, their real name, whatever's on their birth certificate, we're not going to do it out of disrespect. We're just doing it out of truth. And so Gavin Newsom, understands the unfairness of boys competing against girls. He can acknowledge that. Will he come out and say that? Probably not. I think that he's just making a move towards the center because he's realized that he is no longer in the majority with his belief system. So he also goes into the fact about suicide, and this is commonly brought up in this when this subject is brought up. They're making a false point that identifying somebody the way they want to be identified by allowing a child, typically, because that's how we usually address this situation, is when we're talking about children. When a child changes their mind about the gender that they want to identify with, which is a fallacy, but let's just go down that path for a second. And the people around that affirm that, which you're just supposed to automatically do without question. then that reduces the suicidality of that person. And that has actually been shown to be completely false. Okay. So we're not only, not identifying the fact that there is a mental illness going on there, that there's something wrong either with their upbringing or just something's not clicking right. Maybe they have a hormonal imbalance. All kind of things are possible, but we're not even going to try to figure it out. We're just, nope. You say you're a girl, but you say you're a boy. Fine. That's what you're going to be. What's your new name? How do you want us to address you? That's the path that we're supposed to go down. And that is crazy. And it has been shown that it does not help the person to have a better mental health. Now, Hakeem Jeffries was asked about this. We saw this clip a little bit in the intro. He was asked about this, and he gives this crazy, nonsensical answer. Here's that.
California Governor Gavin Newsom's comments saying that Democrats were in the wrong for allowing transgender athletes to compete in female and girls sports. What is your response to that after Democrats had opposed the women and girls in sports?
I haven't seen his comments. What Democrats opposed was unleashing sexual predators on girls throughout the United States of America.
So like I said, a completely nonsensical answer. And I don't know what he's trying to imply here. I mean, what I take from it is that he's trying to imply that girls without boys in their sport would be attacked by sexual predators. I don't know if he's trying to call straight people sexual predators. I mean, I guess the most common sense thing that you could make out of what he's saying is that having boys pretending to be girls in girls' sports protects the girls from sexual predators, like the boys who are pretending to be girls would protect the girls. I don't think that there's any data to support that, and I think that's kind of like way out in left field. But that's the only thing that I can interpret his phrasing to mean. It's just completely out there. Anyways, next topic, we're going to talk about the tariffs between the United States and Canada and Mexico. Donald Trump has agreed to put a pause on these tariffs, especially ones that do with agriculture and like auto parts, completed cars. He said he's met with these companies and he doesn't want to hurt them financially. So he's putting a pause on all this stuff. Now, I don't know if this is just another step in his negotiations to get what he wants. I mean, he ultimately is saying that he wants to stem the flow of fentanyl into the United States. And both both Canada and Mexico have said that they're working on this. Obviously, there's a lot more coming through Mexico than Canada. But Donald Trump said even the amount that's coming through Canada, which people have said it's just enough to fill like one luggage suitcase, is enough to kill like a ton of people because fentanyl is just so potent. So he says that's not good enough. That's not good enough metric. That's not what we're using. So he has basically stated that this is the goal for all these tariffs. He's also alluded to the fact that it's going to bring financial wealth to the United States, and it could, but I'm not sure really how that would come about. I mean, he was going to offset it with tax cuts so that the increased prices of the goods that are being tariffed, would be balanced out. Maybe, but would it really change anything? I don't really know. But I think that he's just using this as a strategy. Now, Gavin Newsom has basically said they're going ahead with the tariffs already. So the tariffs that Gavin Newsom was going to impose on the United States, even though Trump put a hold on ours, Gavin Newsom didn't do it on his. So Donald Trump is basically saying that he is going to reciprocate those tariffs now, because he said we're going to reciprocate whatever tariffs people put on us back on them. So now there's going to be a little bit of a battle, and now it's actually Canada who's starting the battle, and Donald Trump just going back against him, so that it's retaliatory. So it'll be interesting to see how this all plays out. Here's Donald Trump talking about those tariffs.
In Canada, we find that they're charging us over 200% for dairy products. You know about that. And when I left, we had that well taken care of. But under Biden, they just kept raising it. Very difficult to deal with. The Canadian representatives. 250% for dairy products, tariff. So where do you hear that? You don't hear that. They have a tremendously high tariff. Give you the exact numbers in a little while coming out on lumber. So they sell us lumber. They have a tremendous tariff. They make it impossible for us to sell lumber or dairy products into Canada, but our numbers are a tiny fraction of that, almost non-existent. And what we're doing is freeing up our forests from the environmental nonsense that they put on them, where you can't cut down a tree. And we have to cut down trees in order to build the firewalls. And those trees are sold, but we're freeing it up on an emergency basis because Canada has been ripping us off for years on tariffs for lumber and for dairy products. 250%, nobody ever talks about that. 250% tariff, which is taking advantage of our farmers, so that's not going to happen anymore. They'll be met with the exact same tariff unless they drop it, and that's what reciprocal means. And we may do it as early as today, or we'll wait till Monday or Tuesday, but that's what we're going to do. We're going to charge the same thing. It's not fair, never has been fair.
So that's Donald Trump explaining that we're just going to retaliate and make sure that it's a fair trade balance. Here's Emily Austin talking about the tariffs some more.
And then this idea of the tariffs.
Yeah, I also want to remind the viewers and yourself that it was Treasury Secretary Janet Yellen that reaffirmed that tariffs don't, in fact, actually inflate the American economy in defense of tariffs that Joe Biden at the time wanted to in place. And I also want to point out a few contradictory statements saying, well, Trump is, giving us whiplash on his tariff policies. But on the other hand, I view that as coming into something and not wanting to settle on an imperfect deal. So the reason, they're calling it, what is he, walking back on it? I'll call it a suspension in the meantime, a little bit of a delay, because he, in fact, is doing this because he wants to protect the farmers and he wants to protect the auto manufacturing employees and give them some time. Like you said, they can't do it in a month. Mm-hmm. You can't possibly make 350,000 American jobs in 1 month. So if you delay it, you have the possibility of bringing the work back to the states, which is exactly what he wants to implement. Now, you asked, well, is he not looking at the markets? I think he's made it quite clear that his goal is to stop the fentanyl crisis, and I don't think you can put a price on one's life.
So, like I said, she was talking about the fact that the only, purpose of these tariffs is not just to make financial windfall for the United States. It's a negotiating tool. And I think that's also an important point that I made as well. Here's Congressman Byron Donalds also going back and forth on the tariffs that Donald Trump has, used as the negotiating tactic.
Because when prices were rising in the United States, I didn't hear CNN talking about that much. As a matter of fact, you ignored most of it while it was hurting the American people. So let the president negotiate on tariff policy. That is what he's doing, and it's going to work out to the better. You didn't cover it the way it needed to be covered. Let's just be perfectly honest.
Okay, well, that's a matter of opinion.
You let the last administration get away with it, but the American people suffered as a result.
But
no, it's not my opinion. That's a fact.
Okay, no, it's not a fact. Congressman Byron Donalds, thank you for coming on to share your points of view. We appreciate your time and best of luck in your run for governor of Florida. We'll be right back.
So another point that actually both of these speakers brought up was the fact that there's such hypocrisy on the left, right? The first, Emily talked about, Janet Yellen, how she had said that tariffs weren't really that big of a deal and didn't cause a downturn in the economy. Byron Donalds pointed out the hypocrisy of CNN, where they really didn't cover the economy being in poor shape until Donald Trump was in office. Both of these facts are extremely true. Not that you can be extremely true. True is true. But regardless, they're true because, and we all know that, this has been a complete turnaround since the inauguration, that all of a sudden we're able to talk about the price of eggs. You're allowed to talk about the factors of the economy, like the joblessness and the low incomes and the imbalance between income and the cost of living. We're all of a sudden now able to talk about these things, even though they've been true for the last 4 years, in which those 4 years they kept saying that it was all COVID's fault, or they blamed Donald Trump, which is hard to really see the rationale behind, but they blame COVID. Now, all of a sudden, it's on Donald Trump, even though he just stepped in office. Next, they're going to tell us when Donald Trump succeeds, and whoever the president is afterwards, they're going to say, well, we saved it from him, but then Donald Trump's successful because the guy before him. You know, they go through this pattern of they'll just never give credit where credit is due. But fortunately, most of the American public knows better than to follow in that. So speaking of jobs, during the Biden administration, when we looked at the job numbers, anytime there was job growth, you could easily look at the jobs given to American citizens versus foreign-born workers. And there was actually quite an imbalance because the foreign-born workers were receiving much more, many more jobs than, citizens were. And now Donald Trump gives the numbers to show that that is finally changing around. I wonder why.
Big gains for native-born Americans for the first time in 15 months. The job gains for native-born Americans, for American people born in America, exceeded job gains for migrant and foreign-born workers. This is the first time that's happened in more than 15 months. Employment for native-born workers went up by 284,000, while foreign-born workers went down by 87,000. Now, you've heard the same stat where foreign workers were taking up all the jobs or almost all the jobs. In some cases, literally all of the jobs. And now it's 284,000 native-born jobs here, people born in our country, 284,000, while foreign-born workers went down by 87,000. First time that's happened in a long time. So these are incredible numbers, and they're very early. I mean, we're here for 5 weeks, but we have been talking about it since the big win in November 5th. So a lot of these people, they listen to us speak and they say, well, I'm going to gear up, and they're gearing up. And so they've been gearing up. They've had a little time. It's not just 5 weeks. It's 5 weeks plus a few months.
So Donald Trump's pointing out that the tariffs are having the effect that he's intending. Some of this effect that he's intending it to have, besides it being a negotiating tactic versus other countries, he's also intending it for it to have the effect of bringing business back to the United States. We've seen the chip company that's decided they're going to bring work back here, build a factory, and invest billions of dollars. We've seen Honda say that they're going to build their Honda Accord, I think their hybrid car, in the United States when they were going to build it in Mexico. So we've already seen it have that effect in numerous different venues and factories and companies bringing their work to America, which is going to bring a lot of tax growth and employee base back to America. So it's having that benefit as well, as Donald Trump points out. Also, the side note of these are natural born citizens, not illegal aliens or people just coming here claiming sanctuary and taking jobs from Americans, which is important. So we get to turn to the left now, and the fact that they think that they're winning, or at least they're trying to convince somebody they're winning. Here's Hakeem Jeffries telling us that they've got Republicans on the run.
We have the Republicans on the run on 3 core issues. They are on the run in terms of the economy. In fact, Donald Trump and Republicans are crashing the economy in real time. Donald Trump gave one of the most divisive speeches by a president in American history. 100 minutes. And he barely spent any time on the economy. Why? Because it's collapsing on his watch. They made promises with respect to lowering costs. Costs aren't going down. They're going up. Inflation is going up. You know what's coming down? Donald Trump's poll numbers. Because he is mismanaging the economy, and the American people are feeling it. And we're just at the 45-day mark. We have them on the run in terms of health care, particularly as it relates to Medicaid. House Democrats stand on the side of Medicaid and the American people. Republicans are trying to enact the largest cut to Medicaid in American history. And we need to keep the pressure on them legislatively and in communities all across the country. And partnering with you, we will be able to continue to do that. And we have them on the run with respect to the GOP tax scam, where they want to cut Medicaid, cut nutritional assistance for children and families, cut veterans benefits, and potentially cut Social Security benefits by trying to decimate the Social Security Administration. We have to continue to call them out on their extremism. We will do that. And all of that is being done in service of trying to pass massive tax breaks for their billionaire donors like Elon Musk and wealthy corporations. So we have them on the run, and we're going to keep our foot on the gas pedal. We've been joined by some tremendous.
So I'm kind of confused on who he's trying to convince. It kind of seems like he's trying to convince himself of the fact that they have Republicans on the run, because I don't think anybody else is believing him. You'll look at the polls, Donald Trump is more popular than ever, more popular than any president at this time in his presidency in modern history. And he's talking about the economy being downturned in 45 days. Never in a Democratic presidency have they ever taken credit or taken responsibility for the position of an economy in 45 days after inauguration. Never. And you would never see that happen. The American people know better and are not listening to him. They keep bringing up Medicare and Medicaid, which Donald Trump has promised he won't cut. So it's a fallacy. They've brought up a lot of other entitlements that Donald Trump has said he's not going to touch. And yet they still keep saying it. They keep bringing up benefits for billionaires, which is not a thing. Look at the numbers. Look at the numbers from before Donald Trump's tax cuts and after, and look at the percentages that these billionaires, the top 1%, is paying. And you're going to see that they're paying more than they were paying before. It's a complete fallacy. Besides the fact that these billionaires are the employers of almost everybody in the country, other than government workers, which really do not build an economy. They may help with the government, activities and social services, but they are not building any economic structure. And so the Democrats are actually the ones on the run, and it's clear because they don't know who their leader is. Here's Tim Walz when he's asked who the Democratic leader is right now.
Sir, who do you think the leader of the Democratic Party is right now?
I think the voting public right now is what I would say, and I keep telling that. We're not going to have a charismatic leader ride in here and save us from this. And I would argue that the Tea Party, as it arose out of the ACA, well, where was that charismatic leader? It was John Boehner and Mitch McConnell, and a whole bunch of angry folks at town halls that had members of Congress like myself answering questions. So when people are looking around, where's the leaders or whatever, they are going to organically step up. And what I said our job is, of people who do have power to enact things, we damn sure better be doing it. Yeah. And we better be out there standing alongside them. That's what we need to do.
So he says the American people, the voter, is the leader of the Democratic Party right now, which basically is a non-answer. It's sidestepping the question. Not that Tim Walz was ever really good at answering questions, but he cannot answer the question because there is no leader. Nancy Pelosi is old and feeble. She has stepped aside from being the leader. She used to have the Democratic Party under her thumb and make everybody move in unison. Now she is not able to do that. Nobody has taken her place. There is nobody in charge. Kamala Harris has gone back to her home state with her tail between her legs, and there's nobody in charge. Here's a panel on CNN talking about the fact that there is no leader.
Walz has no idea what happened last night because he has always been and remains in over his head. He's a fringe partisan. He sees the world through the tired old politics that failed last year, this class warfare message, it doesn't work. Look what happened in the speech. 74% of Americans said it was presidential. 74% entertaining. 71% inspiring. 62% unifying. 46% said divisive, which was how the Democrats want to describe it. They don't know what happened.
That's going to be skewed, though, right? Because it's people that watch the speech, so that's going to be more Republican.
Okay.
I'm not saying, listen, our 80% number that we showed, David talked about it last night, it's about 14% more Republican than usual, so that still puts it at a big disapproved number. But I just want to caveat what you're saying.
Listen,
continue.
The reality is Donald Trump had a perfectly good night because he articulates issues that the vast majority of the American people are basically in alignment with. And the Democrats had a terrible night because they acted like children, just like Fetterman said. I was interested to see Walz attack Fetterman. The 2028 Democratic primary for president is obviously on. And if that's the best, they have to offer, I mean, look, I don't know who the leader of the Democratic Party is, but I know who runs it. Donald Trump. He runs both parties.
Scott Jennings got him there because Donald Trump is running both parties right now because he's living rent-free in the Democrats' heads. And you can tell because they keep bringing it up. And the key thing about Donald Trump is that any publicity is good publicity. He lives that phrase more than anyone else that I've ever seen in political positioning. And you could tell that Scott Jennings is just enjoying stirring up this panel, something he's really good at, but he makes good points as well. And he's just pointing out that the Democratic Party is reeling, right? And so in furtherance of a Democratic Party without a leader, we saw Al Greene get removed from the congressional speech that Donald Trump gave the other night. And now he has been censured. And this is what happened in Congress when he was censured.
On this vote, the yeas are 224, the nays are 198, with 2 answering present. The resolution is adopted. Without objection, a motion to reconsider is laid on the table. The House will come to order. The House will come to order. Shh. Will Representative Greene present himself to the will? By its adoption of House Resolution 189, the House has resolved that Representative Al Greene be censured, that Representative Al Greene forthwith present himself in the well of the House of Representatives for the pronouncement of censure, and that Representative Al Greene be censured with public reading of this resolution by the Speaker.
So in typical cringe fashion of the left, they are singing "We Shall Overcome" as Al Greene gets censured. Now, 10 Democrats join the Republicans in this vote to make this censure pass, which shows that the whole Democratic Party is not in lockstep, but it was a bipartisan agreement to censure Al Greene. And he stands there with a position of strength and honor as he's being censured in Congress, which has only happened a handful of times in all of history. So they, again, are cringe and out of touch as shown here. Now, Scott Jennings talks about this.
I feel like over the last few weeks, there's been numerous instances of Democrats breaking out into song, and all I've been able to discern is that when Democrats are singing, Republicans are winning. I mean, it was a bipartisan resolution that passed today. Some people in your party voted to censure Representative Greene. You said something earlier that really piqued my interest, which was you said the Democrats should not be listening to John Fetterman. I think he's maybe your most authentic voice. Who's a better representative, Greene or Fetterman for the Democratic Party?
And but on that point, Fetterman is a senator from a very critical state. I mean, why not listen to John Fetterman?
Because I think John Fetterman is doing what is popular at the time. I'm not necessarily sure that John Fetterman is being driven by what is best for his districts or his district or his constituents. What I was trying to say is that I don't actually think that there should be a politician that should be driving the messaging. I think that if Democrats are smart, they'd be putting ads of people who've been impacted all across the country. Mm-hmm. The reality is Democrats have 2 years before we have a 20-person primary, and people can make their case for running for president all they want in 2 years. But for the next 2 years, we need to be telling the story of the people.
Yes, if Fetterman wants to run,
let him run. That's because
we're the Big Ten party.
Right now, we shouldn't be.
You said we shouldn't be listening to him.
Well, I personally do not think that we should be listening to him, but I also don't think that people.
So his face at the end is so telling because he got him again. He got him again because Fetterman is their most common sense person right now on their side of the aisle, and they don't want to listen to him. It just goes to show what I've been saying all along, that they are out of touch and they cannot course correct. If they can't listen to Fetterman and take some of what he's saying to heart, they cannot course correct as long as that is the case. Speaking of cringe and being out of touch, there are a couple of videos that we've got to show today. The first one comes from Rosa DeLauro, who is Connecticut's representative. And she's an old lady who has colored hair. I think she's trying to be cool. I don't really understand. But this is her doing some kind of Gen Z thing. I don't know.
Yo, this is the Ranking Rizzler on Appropriations, serving Connecticut's 3rd District. It's time to enter your dark academia Congress era. All right, besties. House Appropriation is the money moves in Congress. We are not chasing the bag. We are the bag. Democrats are making life smoother through government funding. It's giving, it's giving. So Sigma, main character energy. But Republicans' Project 2025 is mad sus. Eliminating the Department of Education? Negative aura points. Basically, the biggest phantom tax on the environment, on your education, and your rights. Big L posting it online, buddy. Democrats understood the assignment, but go off. See how I keep you informed? Very cutesy, very demure.
Ooh, that is cringe. Wow, that is rough to watch. And the funniest part is when she's talking about making things smooth, she's on like some bumpy ride. It's the craziest. I don't know. I don't get it. Just stick to your lane. Like, you're an old person. Great. Pretend you're wise. Play that angle. Don't play the I'm young and hip thing. It's not working. And the little microphone that these people keep using, and then they hold it like way too close to their mouth. Can we stop? I mean, we've got the technology. Just clip it on your lapel or something like that. Don't let these people hold that. They can't handle it. Anyways, there's one more that we've got to cover in the cringe left territory right now. And of course, you know who that is, Jasmine Crockett.
It's a cultural divide. I'm going to get it on the floor. You really about to do it? 40 acres in the mule. This is bigger than the music. You really about to do it? Yeah, they tried to rig the game, but you can't fake influence. They get on it like that. Hey, I'm tripping, I'm sliding, I'm riding through the back like buff. Mustard on a beat, bro, deep boat, any rap. He a freak though, man down, call like Amber Lambs, tell him breathe. Let them boys to the cross, they walk around like G's. What's up with these?
So it's got to be a crazy time to walk around these halls of Congress these days and see everybody performing dances in the hallway and doing crazy things with little microphones. I don't know. It's got to be a crazy time to be around. Anyways, I wanted to cover one more story and then we'll have more videos on another story. So 2 more stories. How they, so now Doge has canceled Obama's library that he was going to build, I think in Indianapolis, I believe. But we're just talking about how it was supposed to be a $500 million project. Now, I don't know if there's a limit on these presidential libraries. I know it's something that every president does. And it's actually like quite a big piece of the budget to maintain these. And there's a staff involved. Obviously, properties are usually prime real estate in big cities where they put these things. But it was supposed to be a $500 million project, now ballooned into $830 million. Now there's football stadiums going for those prices now, and estimates creeping up towards $1 billion mark. Now they said they were going to, of course, use DEI to build this thing, and it's a good evidence of how DEI is a failure, especially when you're talking about efficiency in government and contractors' work. They promised over 50% of the contracts would go to minority-owned firms, a pledge that it has now surpassed. Okay, so there's been this thing has been burdened with so many structural issues, and they tried to correct it, whatever. They ended up canceling this whole project, or they're planning on moving it now, and now Doge has canceled the whole contract. So we're going to see how that plays out, but it is a lesson in how DEI is a complete and utter failure, as we all know, but we love to show examples of how that continues. Now, our final news story of the day, we're going to talk about the continuation of the New York state corrections officers striking in the prisons. New York State has now offered what they say is their final offer to bring these prison guards back. I call bull on that. I think that they're going to have to make another offer because this offer is not much better than the first one. I'm going to show you some clips of the press conference by the DOC's commissioner and also the Dishes, which is Homeland Security in New York. The commissioner there, but neither of these people who are really that intelligent, but they think they are. I think Kathy Hochul's now on a mission to not have anybody working for her that's more intelligent than she is, which is a pretty low bar to fit under. So these people are doing some real limbo to be that dumb. But anyways, they're talking about their final offer. It really hasn't changed. It really hasn't. So I'm going to just clip through it and just show you some of these clips. You can go on my X page to see the full press conference, or there's some available on YouTube as well.
My name is Dan Marticello, Commissioner of the Department of Corrections and Community Supervision, and I'd like to provide you an update as we now conclude the 18th day of this illegal strike. Unfortunately, this evening, President Summers and his executive board have refused to sign the Memorandum of Understanding, once again failing his members. I heard my workforce loud and clear, and I will not fail to deliver on what I promised. We agreed to allow staff as they transition back to continue working 12-hour shifts until it is determined that each facility has returned to normal operations. At that time, we will then return employees to their 8-hour shifts, including the shift and squad they were originally assigned to, and the superintendents will take measures to the best of their ability to ensure that they honor an employee's regular day off. We're willing to continue to discuss the possibility of TSA scanners for the entrance into our correctional facilities.
I want to be exceedingly clear. This deal is for those who return tomorrow and only for those who have previously returned, who remained on the job, or for those who have returned tomorrow. Any corrections officer or any sergeant who does not return to work tomorrow, the terms will not apply. And this deal will not be offered again. Specifically, we will not negotiate concerning the dismissal of contempt charges again. It is being offered for those who return tomorrow. We will continue to pursue terminations for those who do not return to work tomorrow. We want you back. We need you back. You need to come back to work tomorrow.
So that press conference was pretty entertaining because they have clearly not heard the membership one bit. The key sticking point that these correctional officers are really on strike over is the fact that their job is not safe for them to return to. That is the key sticking point. If you listen to all the points throughout all these give backs, supposedly that the state has offered these corrections officers, it's all temporary measures or empty promises. That's it. 30 days of increased overtime. They don't care about that. They said, we're going to create a commission to talk about the HALT Act. They do not want a commission. They want the HALT Act to be stopped. It is a bad law, and the legislature of New York, the People's Republic of New York, needs to meet and abolish this law today. The correction officers have already turned down this deal en masse. They have made it pretty clear that this is not good enough, that this is not, they're not trusting signs of good faith, which have not really even been offered. They want a safe job. And the corrections officers I've talked to and people who know other corrections officers have basically resigned to the fact that they need to find a new job. And that is what's going to put the state into a real bind, that these people have moved on and they are going to be in big trouble. The state is only right in one fact, that this offer will only be standing for now because they are going to have to come back with a better offer if they are going to get people to fill these jobs. They are in a bind, spending over $3 million per day to have the National Guard there. This news story shows the conditions the National Guard is spending overnight, and who knows how long their shifts are. in the corrections facilities.
Dan, I want you to take a look at these pictures from inside a state prison in the North Country. Those are cots set up in a gymnasium. Those are National Guard members. They were provided to us by a source connected to the National Guard, and they give you an idea of how most of the Guards, men and women who are deployed inside these state prisons right now are living as they fill in for striking corrections officers.
The hope is that as more corrections officers return, fewer members of the National Guard will be needed to keep the peace inside our state prisons. But for now, their duties continue to expand inside.
And this is the bind New York State, the People's Republic of New York, I should say, has put themselves in. The guards only want safety. They want to be able to go for a normal shift, to spend time with their family, to know when they go to work, when they'll be home, so they can tell their spouse and their loved ones, I'll be home in X amount of hours, that they can, I mean, think of us. We bring our lunch to work. We know that we're going to be home for dinner. They do not know that. They don't know where they're going to sleep that night. They don't even know if they're going to make it home at night. This is sickening behavior on the behalf of the state. The state is in shambles because Kathy Hochul is a terrible leader and she has hired terrible people to work for her. Another example of why DEI is a big failure in anything that it touches. So I continue to stand with these corrections officers and hope that they are able to hold the line and come out with a good resolution in the end. Anyways, I want to thank you guys for coming and listening to another episode today. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and leave a comment below. Come back again next week. Have a good weekend. Don't forget to go out and volunteer for something meaningful. And as always, go out and spark the conversation.